Join me today for a Trash Treasure project where we take this little hair clip and turn it into this, a lovely wall hanging for inside or outside the dollhouse. Stay tuned and see how fun and easy this project is. Alright, so I have a Trash to Treasure project for you guys today. I actually found this little hair clip in the middle of the crosswalk when I was crossing the street the other day, and I thought, better me take it home and make a project with it than a car run over it. So, and I know you may not have the same one, although I think when my daughter was little, my mother-in-law used to buy these at the dollar store. They never stayed in because they really don't clip very well. So they make crappy little hair clips, but they make really fun projects, and that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to start. I've already washed this thoroughly with soap and water and let it dry for actually a couple of days. So I am going to use my wire cutters. I dug these out of my toolbox. I'm going to cut 2 places with these and then neaten up with my knife. As close to that end because we've got that little piece, and then this has this little piece on the back which just fell off. Let's see if I can get, not very well. So I'm going to reach over and get my knife. Whoops, didn't mean to hit the tripod. Sorry about that. Now if you're going to do this with a knife, be very careful. There, now that back is smooth. All right, now I have some files. And the idea here is we want to get as much of that extra plastic off. Doesn't have to be perfect. There we go. Now, I have a craft stick. And I've got some of that blue tack stuff that you put posters on the walls with. Press that on there, and I'm going to press that onto here. And I just realized, oh, I do have, thought I'd forgotten a cotton ball. I have it. All right, because I want to paint this, we're going to have to do some prep work in order to paint it. I have some 91% isopropyl alcohol and a cotton ball. And after I do this step, I don't want to touch the plastic parts that I'm going to paint until after they are painted. So I'm just going to rub that on here. What this will do, and sometimes I use white vinegar, sometimes I use the rubbing out the isopropyl alcohol, depending on what I've got handy at that time. I'm pressing it down as hard as I can into that blue tack. What this does is it takes off any oils off of my skin that might prevent the paint from sticking, because paint doesn't really like to stick to plastic. I'm going to give this about 5 or 10 minutes so that the alcohol completely evaporates and this is completely dry, and then I'll come back and we'll do our first coat. Alright, now if this was a flatter piece without all the details, I would probably sand it just a little bit. But because of all the details, number one, I don't want to mess up the details. There's a lot there. And it would be very hard to sand those spaces. So we're going to skip the sanding step that I would normally do, and we're going to go on to a coat of matte Mod Podge. In my experience, this helps to keep the paint adhered to the plastic without having to use a multi-surface paint. Now my Mod Podge bottle is almost empty, so I'm having to really dip the brush down and get it where I don't want it on the brush. But I'm going to paint the entire surface that I'm going to coat with paint later. In the next step, I'm going to coat with matte Mod Podge. And then this needs to dry completely. If it's not dried completely, it could cause your paint to fail. It could cause a crackle effect, which is not what we're after today. So I'm going to make sure this is coated completely, and when that completely dries, I'll come back and we'll go to our first coat of paint. All right, the matte Mod Podge has dried, and now we're going to give this a coat of black craft paint. It's just some Anita's that I've got on hand. And remember, don't touch the plastic until after you're all done with the finishes. So I'm just going to coat the top and the sides. You don't need to do the back, but try and get the sides done really well too, with a nice coat of black paint. And then this also needs to dry completely before we go to our next step, because if we try to do our next step on this while the paint's still damp, it's not going to work. So I'm going to finish giving this a good base coat of black, and then between thunderstorms this afternoon, I will try to film the rest of this. So I'll see you when this has got a good coat and it's dry. All right, my black paint has dried all the way, and it only took one coat and it looks really good. And I've got my brushed silver, brushed metal paint, and a brush. I kind of was practicing on the part I cut off, so my paintbrush already got some paint on it. Now what I want to do is put not a very heavy coat of this. I'm trying to go for, well, I'm using as inspiration a necklace I used to have many years ago, and I think it was labeled as gunmetal, was the finish that it was labeled on it. And it was more black than silver, just a hint of a silvery. And that's kind of what I'm going for here, just a really light silver over the black. There. I think that's going to be perfect. I'm going to I'll neaten up the edges. I'll let it dry, and then we'll come back and take a look and see if it's what I'm looking for. I'll be right back. And there is our decorative piece on the front wall of the beachside bungalow. I love how this looks. It looks like a piece of metal. I've seen a lot of these metal decorative items on houses and fences around where I live, so I imagine they're popular other places too. I hope you enjoyed today's project. Be sure and hop over to the blog post to see some photos. I'll have a few more details over there, and I'll talk a little bit more about Trash to Treasure projects. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure and hit the like button, leave me a comment. What kinds of projects would you like to see in the future, and do you have any items for Trash to Treasure you'd like to see me try to tackle? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoy my content and haven't subscribed, I encourage you hit that subscription button and the notification bell so you know when I put up a new video, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!